Hey y'all, Corey here from Ensemble, Texas. Excited to welcome you back to another Texas Nature Journal entry where I'll be sharing with you the Esperanza. Esperanza, also known as yellow bells or yellow trumpet flower, is one of the most eye-catching plants that you'll find in Texas landscapes with its bold, yellow trumpet-shaped flowers, as you can see it has right here. It's not just a showstopper for gardens, but I think it's also a symbol of resilience, as this plant can thrive in some of the most scorching Texas sun. So whether you're a seasoned Texas native gardener or just starting out, I think Esperanza is a plant that will thrive under the harshest conditions with minimal care for you and your landscape. Some quick facts about the Esperanza, or the Tecoma stans, which is its Latin name. The Esperanza belongs to the trumpet creeper family, and this shrub typically grows between 3 to 6 feet tall, although in warmer, more southerly regions of its native range, it can reach up to 9 feet, which I have certainly seen on my own property here in San Antonio, Texas. It blooms from spring through fall and really desires full, blazing hot sun to fully thrive and perform its best. We are in some morning shade right now here in this spot on my property, but soon enough, as the sun moves up over this pecan tree, this Esperanza really gets scorched, and the soil composition here is really quite dry, more gravelly and sandy, which we'll talk about more in a bit. So where is the Esperanza native? Well, despite its tropical look, Esperanza is native to the rugged terrain of Texas, particularly in the Big Bend region. So its range stretches west to Arizona and south through Mexico and Central America. It's got a sliver of native range here in Texas. I long thought it was a non-native plant because of its tropical look, and it's so popular in the nursery trade here in San Antonio and throughout Texas. So I'm a little skeptical when plants are really that popular that they could actually be classified or fit the designation as a Texas native plant. But this plant is perfectly suited to the dry, rocky slopes and canyons, thriving where really many other plants can struggle to survive, which brings us nicely into the benefits of having Esperanza for your landscape. I think one of Esperanza's best traits is its drought tolerance. Of course, once established, it requires very, very little water, making it ideal for zero-scaping conditions or water-saving gardens. And its bright, showy flowers, which we're enjoying right now, can bring a pop of color in rock gardens and very dry, sunny borders. Even containers, actually, an Esperanza can be a container plant. So it's versatile enough to fit just about anywhere you need color and desire some low-maintenance beauty. As for wildlife, not only is Esperanza beautiful and showy, but it also supports a lot of local Texas wildlife. Its nectar-rich flowers attract hummingbirds, bees, and butterflies, making it a valuable addition to any pollinator-friendly garden for you. Specifically, it is a host plant for the dogface butterfly, contributing to the local pollinator biodiversity. As for planting and care, let's talk first about where and how to plant Esperanza in your landscape. This plant, as mentioned, loves full sun. So think about some of the hottest, driest parts of your garden. That's why this Esperanza is here, not necessarily maybe the space where it gets all day, everyday sun, but it's extremely dried out here, and the soil composition really has changed, I think, since the change in owners before, as they've manipulated this backyard quite a bit before we got to it. But if you want to see those blooms thrive, make sure that your Esperanza is in a dry space, preferably kind of sandy, more gravelly conditions if you have them, and make sure it gets that direct sun. When I've planted my first few Esperanza plants in locations in the front of our landscape, I really just saw tons of growth, tons of green growth, but very minimal blooms. And my thought of that is a few things. The soil itself might not be dry enough. we are on clay predominantly here in the Blackland Prairie of Texas, our part of San Antonio. Also, not getting enough direct sun. So balancing those two things together, I have some thoughts to actually transplant an Esperanza plant of mine that has grown very massive to a much drier, hotter, and sunnier portion of our property. But this is the first Esperanza for me on our property that has naturally bloomed on its own, and I have to believe it's the combination of the soil conditions here, really well draining. It's a little bit lifted up to some degree, the sun, and it's dry. You get your hands into the soil here, and it's a little more sandy composition. Esperanza is a very low maintenance plant, but it does benefit from occasional seasonal care. You can prune it back in the winter, especially if it dies back after a freeze. I prune my Esperanza back every single year. We do see, the leaves all die off, but no matter what happens to the Esperanza here on our property, just because it grows so profusely and fast, I cut it back every single winter. So as well, during its active growing season, trimming spent blooms will encourage even more flowers. So keep that in mind, spring and summertime. And while it is very, very drought tolerant, younger Esperanza plants might need occasional deep watering during their establishment phase. But once Esperanza is established, it's adapted to handle, desert monsoon rains. Actually, it prefers that when it's younger as well, which means that it wants very deep, infrequent watering rather than regular irrigation. So keep that in mind if you have your own irrigation system on any of your landscape beds. So Esperanza is easy to propagate from cuttings. The best time to take those cuttings is in late spring or fall, and you'll want to select a piece that's about 3 to 4 inches long and woody at the base. And just be sure that your fall cuttings receive some cold protection over the winter. And then, minimal care like misting or periodic watering is really essential to make sure that the cuttings are healthy and you give them the greatest chance of success. Esperanza pairs beautifully with other Texas natives like Cenizo, Texas mountain laurel, and Flamacanthus. Together, I think they really create a very vibrant, and of course, water-wise, drought-resilient landscape that can withstand some of the toughest Texas conditions while still looking really lush and colorful. All right, y'all, that's all I have for you in this Texas Nature Journal entry with the Esperanza. One final tip. Be sure to look out in nurseries that you are getting the Texas native variety of Esperanza versus the more tropical variety that is becoming more widely sold throughout Texas nurseries. Our Texas native is more adapted to our conditions, certainly, and maybe most importantly, more cold hardy. And so keep that in mind and be careful to look out for it and ask questions when you're purchasing at the nursery. This has become a really popular plant, and so of course with that people attempt to make different varieties of it, and so we got to look for the native one to give ourselves the greatest chance of success here in our own Texas landscapes, especially considering how small of an actual native range the Esperanza has in the state of Texas. Again, it does quite well throughout Texas, but it's really only found in natural spaces in a small portion of it. If you are looking for a low maintenance, drought tolerant plant that will bring a burst of color and support local wildlife, I do have to think Esperanza, the native Texas Esperanza, is a perfect addition to your Texas landscape. So I hope this video has inspired you and informed you to consider adding this resilient plant to your landscape. But before we finish up here, if you're ready to get started with Texas native plant landscaping, but don't know where to begin, I have a free 7-day email series that walks you through the process step by step. I gotta believe this will save you tons of time and money on avoiding killing more plants along the way. So you can sign up at ensembletexas.com/TXNative.